So welcome, our beloved brother Mohammed. I so appreciate your leadership, and as always at Setsi, we begin all things by acknowledging our Creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Brother Mohammed, beloved Brother Mohammed, please share your remarkable work and your background with our listeners and viewers.
So how do I start after that intro? That's an amazing, beautiful intro. Thank you so much. And to your point, everything starts with God. So thank God for all the work we're able to do in our communities. And I'm happy to be here today to talk with you. My name is Mohamed, born and raised in Toronto. Somali background. Parents came here in the 90s, like many other Somalis, coming to Canada. A little bit about what I do and how I got there is I co-founded an organization called Somali Together. Our mission is really to enhance the lives of Somali youth by growing into young youth leaders and really hoping that investment in the youth can lead to more community impact and sustainable change within our communities. Why we're doing this? Many issues. The Somali community coming in the 90s obviously faced many barriers that refugees face coming to a new country. Language barriers, education barriers, housing barriers, the list can go on. A lot of those barriers in the early 90s, I think, translated into a lot of negativity into the young Somali community into the early 2000s, late 90s into early 2000s around gun violence and things like that. And as many are aware of, it's a issue, a real big issue in our community, and we lost so many people in our community. The list is too long to count, and everybody's affected by it in our community. And our thought process was, or our thesis was, if we can hopefully get to the youth before they get to that path and really, invest in them and make them see all the great possibilities of what being Somali Canadian is, right? And all the beautiful facets of that, and that the sky's the limit, and they can change anything in their own two hands. And really that's why we started Somali Together, right? It was I could tell a little bit about in a bit, like kind of like the context of actually how it started, but that was the premise. Get kids out of trouble by offering them opportunities to see people like them, learn from people like them that look, that are doing amazing things, and then give them the resources and tools once they're inspired to actually apply some of these things into their own lives, into their own communities.
Ashe, amen, amen. I agree completely. Cultural considerations of care, cultural appropriate programming, credible messengers are the key to success in terms of youth developments. And I love what you were saying before. One of my big bros, my mentor, Devon Jones, he always says sometimes we track recidivism, folks reintegrating. Even my beloved brother Liban speaks about that. But what about preventative work? Like, get into them before they're in trouble, So I love what you're doing, brother. And you're an inspiration. But that's a perfect segue. What inspires you right now about your current work, brother?
Oh man. Maybe I could speak to a story, because I think that's sometimes the best ways that I can explain my motivation, because sometimes you feel like it's like hard to put words to it, but then when you live it and you're like, okay, this is why we're what's motivating me. So to preface, like, obviously when you get to an older age and you realize everything your parents gave up to bring you to a safe country, to appreciate that, right? So like all the shortcomings and barriers that you face growing up, like, are nothing in compared to dropping your whole life in another country and coming to a place where it's snow and you've never seen snow in a day in your life, and trying to raise a family. All our parents are relatively young coming to this country. So I think like that obviously is a motivator to want to do good and want to do, good in life. But then like translating that to our community work more specifically, for me, it's when you actually see your impact on youth and how it changed their lives directly. I think that is my motivator in everything we do. So I'll tell a little story. So when we started Somali Together, started with like 20 kids, in our program. And one of the boys was a referral through someone I knew and said, hey, listen, like he's not going through the best time in right now in his life, personal stuff, school stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think this would be a good space for him. Great. Welcome in with open arms. Come in, let's see if we can go together. Day one, arms crossed, doesn't want to smile, doesn't want to crack it, doesn't want to talk. Our program is bi-weekly, so we see them again and again and again and again. So I noticed by like we started in October. I noticed by January, February, March, completely different personality, laughing more, smiling more. And I think that speaks to the environment that we were able to create, a safe space with like-minded people, that are really, positive and things like that. So without him realizing it, first his personality started molding. So that's step one, right? Like once they're confident and they're, like they're all these other interpersonal skills are getting better, despite what's going on outside of our programming. And then the turning point was one day they were like, him and a few other boys were like, we want to do something for our community. So the funny story, like Ahmed, my co-founder, called me one day, saying, Mohammed, some of the boys, they have an idea they want to pitch to you. I said, what do you mean the boys want to pitch me an idea? And they're all 15-year-old boys, by the way. There's like 5 of them. And then I'm like, yeah, like let's hear it. They're like, okay, cool. So I get on a call and then they're like, Mohammed, this is a business meeting. We wrote a proposal for you. I said, what do you guys know about business meetings and proposals? But it was super funny. And Ahmed, I think, like kind of guided them, to put their idea on paper and not just like spit an idea out towards me. And they said, you guys been running us a program for many months now, and we love everything you guys give to us. We want to do the same for middle school kids in our neighborhood. So they're in high school, and they said we want to do something similar, like during our summer vacation. Like school's almost done, it's May, June's about to come around the corner. We want to run a sport program for kids in grade 4 to grade 8, but we don't know where to start. So we're like, cool. I'm like, okay, you guys have a concept. I'm like, okay, let's start asking questions. Where are you going to run it? How are you going to fund it? All these types of stuff. They actually went out of their own way to write a grant application, and they got awarded a grant now that would be able to fund this camp of theirs. So like when I saw that in the moment, I was just like moving so fast. We had so much things going on, but I reflected back after, and I'm like, that's the point of our programming. Our point of our program is to take a kid that could have went in a really bad situation, that didn't want to talk, that opened up, and now is part of a community and a family, to then now want to do that for others. And then we were able to support them and give them the tools, the resources, the knowledge on how to do that for their community. So they did it for the a boys camp, and then after they said we need to do it for our girls camp now, so they did it again. And and it's like that's my motivator, seeing stories like that, and I want to replicate that as much as possible. And that moment in itself actually made me and Ahmed look back at our programming. What's our goal? Last year we didn't have this goal of like making them do community impact work, but now in our mission changed actually. Like we actually revised our nonprofit's mission and added layer to that. It's not just stopping at enhancing their lives, but enhancing their lives with the intention of giving back to their communities, driving more community impact to sustainable change. So that's a long-winded way of saying like that's what gets me motivated. Like that's what keeps me going, and wanting to replicate that as much as possible for other youth.
Legacy. Black excellence. My brother, let him see it. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that story. As you know, we as a people are people of oral tradition. We are griots. So definitely the best way to sometimes share and conceptualize something is through narrative and is through storytelling. So yeah, I give thanks, my beloved brother. So my next question is, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work, and how are you and your team working to overcome some of these challenges?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's obviously many challenges starting a nonprofit, being young Somali men, trying to do this in Toronto for our community. Like a lot of people, how can I say this? A lot of people would doubt our work before they see the fruits of it, if that makes any sense. Like basically what I'm trying to get at is, if you want to do good work, like good work in our community, let me double back. Let me put it in even better context. When there's issues in our community, you don't always see our community running to be the ones to find the solutions all the time. Like that's just a lived experience. Maybe I can add it to least. Maybe it's not a fact across the board, but I feel like we all get together when there's an issue, but then what are we doing about it as a community? That's sustainable. People we do things in the moment, right? Like we do things, but like what are we really doing that's sustainable? So our biggest challenge is sustainability. Period. I think like it's like we can't let our work be dependent on funds that may not be there, right? Like in a year's time from now, recession, impeding recession, all these other economical factors, right? Like our goal is to be above that, right? Obviously, as any organization, you deal with the woes of the economy and all these other things, right? But like my goal is to overcome these challenges, to figure out a way where we can be self-sustaining, where we can be, where we can have our own revenue driving engines of our organization. So that's important, not necessarily because just having the money to operate, but guaranteeing a level of investment back into our youth is important to me. I don't want to be able to, like, I don't know if you're familiar, brother Jermaine from Justice Fund. Jermaine
Oh
is
yeah, yeah,
a
brother Jermaine, good brother, good
yeah,
brother. Yeah.
you know, Jermaine one day told when I was talking about Somali together in our early days, something he said to me stuck. He's like, Mohammed, like, no matter what you do, you got to treat every kid like a VIP, like you know, like you have to like make them feel like they're on top of the world, and like they're and they deserve it. You know, not necessarily just make them feel like that, but let them know that they deserve this level of investment into them, right? Like for example, we cover transportation for our youth back and forth from their houses in our programming. A lot of programs can't do that, and our kids sometimes go like, why do you do that? Like, because I care about you, you know, like because I want you to have no barriers of entry to this program, because I want, you know, to make sure that like there's really nothing stopping you from getting all the benefits from this type of program. So it's like finding the right partners that think the same way, that when we're investing in these youth, it's not just a one-off, it's a sustainable programming that we can have long term. So that's my challenge, and I think I'm working with a lot of great individuals. You know, Foundation for Black Communities, Justice Fund, you know, North Pine Foundation, like all these great organizations that, you know, are really on the same way of thinking, of investing into our communities to really drive sustainable change. I think that's our challenge and our biggest opportunity to overcome. That will, I think, set us in a good direction moving forward.
That's beautiful, my brother. That's beautiful. I appreciate your candid transparency and clear visionary leadership. So my next question is, do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work?
Yeah, definitely. So we're only year 2 as an official nonprofit. We ran this since 2019 as a pilot for 2019, 2020 kind of pandemic, in 2021 still kind of pandemic year. Coming into 2022 was our official first year as a nonprofit. Year 1, I call it year 0, was a test. You know, like we really wanted to just get the kinks out of our programming and understand the operational side of things, right? Like how do we, like, you know, how do we really make this a program that can last? Now our set of key priorities is 2 things. I would say is really obviously delivering on our biweekly programming. However, what we did this year was really tailor our programming per age group. We used to have like high school kids and post-secondary kids kind of together, and we really wanted to give tailored experiences to the youth. So really just kind of splitting up our programming this year, and seeing how that works. And really everything has to be experiential learning. Like I'm not for being talked at. I'm about for giving someone to teach them something for them to do it themselves, right? Like that's really what all our workshops are built around. So that's one side of things, really just to continue to grow that programming and make sure that it's really a rich experience from them from a hands-on learning perspective. And on the second side of things, that's really important for us, our biggest key priority is community impact projects for this year. So kind of like we have 40 kids in our program, 20 boys and 20 girls this year. And part of their commitment to Somali Together, and basically the only thing that they're putting in is a commitment to doing a community project in groups this year that will support financially, but they got to put the plan together, right? So the goal for them is, hey, listen, we have a whole year worth of amazing learning experiences. What are you doing? Taking that example of the kids running that sports camp, and what are you doing for your communities? And this year we're going to really be trying to grow that project. And say this year we do 10 community projects. Then we want to sit down after our year is done, evaluate which projects were successful, which ones we deem sustainable or scalable, and then in the following year invest in 5 of them, for example. Let's say out of the 10, you know, if 5 are really like, you know, something that our community needs, we're going to be doing a lot of research and evaluation, see which ones that we can really continue to grow. That's priority number 2. Priority number 3, so my whole part about being self-sustaining, and not dependent on grants and, you know, and funders that may come and go. Last year we started an event called Somali Together Festival. It was a 2-day weekend event, and it was great. It was like a community like TED Talk style speakers. We had some amazing speakers. Then we did like a community all-star basketball game with youth and some local celebrities, and then we did a dinner gala. It was a great pilot year doing that event, but I really want to grow that, and I think that could be our revenue driver as an organization. I think there's so much value that we want to do outside of our 40 youth in our program and really give back to our community as a larger whole. And last year we were able to bring together over 1,000 people in the weekend, and I think that can just be something that we want to grow. So really it's 3 things: our bi-weekly programming, our community projects, and then our Somali Together Festival are kind of like our 3 priorities going into next year, or this year. It just started. Our programming launched 2 weeks ago. So
incredible. I appreciate the precision and the focus and intentionality, Regine. Well done, well done. So, what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
It's two-folded long-term goal, I think, like, or like dreams. I'll call them dreams, not goals, because it's still, like, uh, the roadmap isn't drafted yet, so I wouldn't call it an exact goal. But the dream is like going back to our roots. Like, I think that what we do here in Toronto for the youth is important. What we do back home in Somalia is important as well. Our youth that are not even thinking about Somalia, they don't have a connection to back home, right? Especially the younger kids, like me, like being born here. My parents came in the '90s. Like, it's already a struggle for me to have that connection. I can only imagine a kid that's 15 years old right now, and their distance from back home. So I think our long-term 20, 30-year vision is like that these youth that have come through our program one day go back home to support back home, and really do that. Like, I think that's my end goal, is how do we develop our Somali community in Canada and diaspora around the world to want to go back home and establish, Somalia in a better capacity. I say that as a long goal, right? And I think a shorter term dream and goal of mine is 10 years from now to look at the Toronto community work landscape and see amazing projects. And I want to see on their resume that they were Somali Together alumni, and they came through our program, and that's what set them apart. To want to do something good for their community. So these community impact projects that I'm discussing, it's like I want to be their foot into doing community work, and understand that, like, you don't need to be a community worker to do community work. Like I'm a marketer by day. I work at Tennis Canada. You see the racket behind me, right? Like, I have like another corporate job. Like, I do other things, but I love my community. So I'm going to spend my evenings and my weekends and my lunches and my afternoons and whatever I can do to give back to my community. I don't need to be a community worker. I'm not going to call myself that, right? But it's just that I'm a member of my community, so I should be putting in work for them. So like that's what I want them to feel. Like, they can have their accountants want to go work, at KPMG or Deloitte. You should do that, but you're a member of such community that you should be also wanting to give back to your community just because you're.
Ashe, amen, amin. So my last question, brother, do you have any closing thoughts or call to action for our listeners and our viewers?
Yeah, definitely. I think, offline, before we were talking, before the camera was recording, like, it's like the work for the Somali community doesn't just impact the Somali community. I think that's one thing that when I'm discussing with others from other communities, other walks of life, like, I let them know, like, there's Somalis in education and healthcare and sports and tech and finance, and and we really do make up a decent amount of like we're everywhere. Like I say that all the time. I'm like, you can find a Somali anywhere, in the world. And the fact that investing in them doesn't just better our community, but betters the city, betters the province, the country, and globally, is the intention. So my call to action to not just the Somali community, but to everybody is like, let's invest. Like, let's put our money where our mouth is, right? We always talk about wanting a better future. We always talk about, wanting to overcome these barriers. And there's a lot of great work being done right now. And I think it's just channeling it to the right people, to help get it to where it needs to go. I think that's the thing, right? Like, I was talking to the former Minister of Sport, federal Minister of Sport, and we were talking about this. And I was saying, like, federal government doesn't know Somali Together per se, but Foundation for Black Communities does, right? So you need to find more organizations like that to support, because they have their ears to the ground, right? Because they know where the money really needs to be funneled, right? So when I'm so happy when a Foundation for Black Communities is awarded the endowment, right, from the federal government, because I trust them, and I trust that they'll get to the right places, and they're also reachable. Like, they're not this, federal government figure that's so far to reach, and I can talk to them and I can let them know what our needs are as a community. So to all the organizations that are on the same accord, like, I want to talk, I want to figure out these issues. Like, I love North Pine Foundation because it's a collaborative approach to address these issues, right? It's not oh, this is what you're doing, here's some money, and they just throw it at you, right? It's really understanding our needs and understanding how capital and investments can really get us to where we need to go, in a smart way. And it's not just not another photo op and a night that, oh, we gave away X amount of dollars to X amount of communities. Like, I think I'm tired of that. I think I've seen it enough, and
The
I want
virtual
to.
signaling has to stop.
Exactly.
Performance,
So,
yeah, it just needs to stop.
exactly. So that'd be my closing remarks. And and I think that like a reminder for all of us that like what these people like we're working really hard to lobby different groups and have these discussions and not to get lost of the impact for the youth. You know what I mean? Like and like really like who are we doing this for? And I think as we keep that in the forefront of our minds, hopefully good things can happen.
Great things are happening, brother. You stand on the shoulders of many, and you are a future ancestor, a community leader. And yeah, I'm just so proud, beloved. I'm so proud of what you do, what you represent, what you stand for. And if there's anything that I can ever do to support you, you know me, I'm an email, I'm a WhatsApp away, I'm a DM away. And we'll close this interview the way we began, by acknowledging our creator, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you, my beloved brother. I appreciate you.
I appreciate everything.